welcome back. You're watching Talking Out Loud with A.L. Cooper. I'm your host, A.L., and today we are talking about a really hot topic. Today we're talking about the evolution of love, sex, and marriage. Before we went to break, Dr. Michael McCain, minister on set today, you were talking about we were discussing how people are struggling with their religious faith and with their own idealisms of what they feel that the love should feel like for them, and how it should evolve, and sexually how things should feel for them, and how marriage should feel for them. This is such a struggle because I think so many times people live their whole life miserable because they can't truly express themselves. What are some things that you guys share, like Dr. Becky, if someone comes to Dr. Beck, Dr. Rebecca?
Either works.
If someone comes to you or to you, Michael, what are some things that you guys are saying to help them get through this struggle?
Well, for me, we said it in the first segment, it's actually Scripture. There's nothing new under the sun. Mm-hmm. So for generations and thousands of years, you've had individuals with various different sexual backgrounds and proclivities, however you want to frame words to that, but it's nothing new. And I think what religion has done to us has caused us to think of things in a different way. We don't want to be that person that does anything to shame God or embarrass God. So from a religious mindset, we have taught in the church people how to camouflage themselves, not really be completely authentic, not really be themselves, forthcoming in who they are. So it causes a type of mental illness with a lot of people because deep inside they're sick, they're hurting, they need an outlet, expression, and they're taught mostly to compress that, to hide that. We put on a facade and pretend to be whatever we need to be for whoever it calls for.
Wow. Dr. Becky, is this the same thing that you're seeing with some of the cases that you've dealt with?
Definitely. And of course, on my end, the religion comes in if the clients identify as religious, and if they don't, then it's more of is this harmful or helpful?
More of a virtue type thing, or is that what you mean?
Harmful to you mentally, that psychological piece. Like you said, when people repress a part of themselves, that in of itself can be detrimental. That isn't to say that we should all just go free for all and do whatever it is we feel like we want to do, because that might be killing our boss, and I don't recommend that anybody do that. So there is definitely a balance, but it's that deciding at what point am I being so inauthentic that it's a problem. We run into this frequently with people who are gay but are Catholic or belong to a church that doesn't accept people being gay. And then you have them sort of trying to force themselves either to be straight when they're not, and then we get a lot of suicides as a result of that. Or you have people who say, well, I can't pretend, so I'm going to be me. And then there's this self-loathing, this hate, this feeling that they're embarrassing God, that they're a disappointment to God, that something is wrong with them. And that's the more extreme version, but I think that also happens when you have heterosexual couples who want to explore or do something that is otherwise divergent in some way, and they have this potential shame. Whether or not they're religious, sometimes it's just society says this isn't okay. I want to do this, but what if my friends find out, and what will they think of me?
So in essence, the evolution of marriage has changed as well when we talk about couples exploring different options. Now, you're a sexologist, Kitty Pride, and do you sometimes have couples come to you trying to figure out what are their options, in a sense?
I've actually gotten more men who are, I try to encourage them to bring their partners and spouses into the equation, and they're more ashamed to even tell their partners.
So that a man would come to you and not speak to their partner or their spouse?
I've had, on a couple occasions, partners find out about me.
Wow.
Because they thought I was the other woman.
Wow.
And I'm like, no. And of course, even though it's just coaching, I still have that, I still have to keep things private. But eventually I have to let them know what I do. But a lot of times, I mean, a lot of shame occurs even in the unit, in the marriage unit. What I find, and it's funny with the minister being here, because I started studying sex from the Bible. That's how I started.
Interesting.
And
Michael, you left something out when you left.
But, you know, I often tell them, because it's with the mentioning of shame, you know, the first miracle was performed after a sex act.
Okay, now we're going to have to take a commercial break on that.
Because
Are you trying to get me put off the air?
No. It was at a marriage supper.
Okay.
And during those times, they didn't walk down the aisle like we do now. We want to talk about evolution of marriage. They didn't walk down the aisle and give a vow. No, there was a tent.
Interesting. A separate tent.
There's a tent, and
While
the
the dinner
bridegroom entered in there. You know, and family a lot of times will be standing outside while they're consummating the marriage. So it was after the first miracle. So that tells you right there that sex is an important element when it comes to our spirituality and just to God himself.
Wow.
So, and I try to open that up to people to get them to understand there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Interesting.
But it should be a celebratory thing. If you feel, if you have a curiosity, or if you know, there's things you kind of want to engage in, you know, I try to encourage men and even women. I've had women ask me questions, but it wasn't in a coaching capacity. It was more like girlfriends talking, because they're concerned, especially here in Atlanta with the whole down low craze.
Right.
And I'm just more like, you know, I hear more statements of, well, if a man does this, he's weak, or he's gay, or he's this. I'm like, whether he's gay or weak or whatever, you know, it's him, it's his body. He has every right to own who he is. And you have no right to shame him, but you have every right to celebrate him.
All right, that's a lot to swallow. It really is. And you mentioned Atlanta. We all here. The show is based in Atlanta, and like I said earlier, Atlanta is like the second city outside of, well, the city right behind San Francisco with the largest population of gay and lesbian citizens. And so I know that this is a part of the evolution. I remember at one point, that was a word that was not necessarily used as openly, but now we have other terms that are coming on. I know, Dr. Rebecca, you were saying that you counsel couples that are swingers, as well as, what was the other?
Polyamorous.
Polyamorous. No, what is, that's a new one. I thought I heard them all, but what is polyamorous? I have no idea what that is.
So the easiest way to sort of differentiate is people who swing, and there's always rules within a couple that can alter this, but generally speaking, people who swing have sex outside of their relationship, but it is just sex. So they may routinely change partners, they may have a single identified person that they will bring in and have a threesome or what have you. Polyamorous couples, the key word there is amorous, which means love. They actually have what most people might call more of an open marriage, in the sense that they are allowed to actually have relationships with other people, which we assume will become sexual at some point, but it is actually a romantic relationship. So you might have a husband and a boyfriend, and your boyfriend may have a boyfriend and a girlfriend, which in of itself can become complicated simply because humans are emotional, and you can imagine, you know how hard it is when you just have two people. So sometimes I run into, there'll be issues more around the emotional piece of it than anything else.
My mouth is wide open. I can't close it. This is crazy. So it's just, I guess I'm what they call vanilla. Isn't that what they say? That means you're just simple, straight-laced, just kind of more traditional. Right. And I didn't think I was vanilla, but after this conversation, I'm definitely vanilla.
I'm probably vanilla compared to most of my colleagues, but let me tell you, most people are not. I think we all have, you know, our own thing that we just keep. We don't have to broadcast it with it. Some people just don't, I don't broadcast everything that I do.
I hope not.
But, you know.
Not saying that's a bad thing.
No, it's not a bad thing. It is what it is. But I
could only imagine now. My mind's going. Go ahead.
But trust me, I'm more conservative than some like friends of mine. Like, I listen to their stories. And people think, like, I have a line of guys and women just lined about my door, like, going, no. Sometimes I want to just be left alone. But, you know, I think the idea of being vanilla is, I don't even think it's real. I think everyone has that side that everyone has a turn on. I mean, it's just that people don't want to accept it, in my opinion.
And I think that this is something, especially in Atlanta, that we here as women deal with. I feel sometimes that if I was single, I would have so much competition with everybody. You know, it's very hard to identify, you know, who would be a good match for you, because you really don't know these people. You don't know what that person really is like when you meet them. I know from a traditional setting, Michael, that there are so many churches here in Atlanta, and there are an abundance of women, specifically of all races, that are seeking a counterpart. They're seeking a male, and it is just such a struggle. And that's why I want to talk about the evolution of this, because maybe we need to be more open-minded. Maybe we need to move someplace else. I mean, I don't know what the solution is. What do you say? Don't you get a lot of women specifically coming to you asking you, what am I going to do? Everybody's just all freaky here in Atlanta.
Or probably trying to propose to them.
What am I going to do?
Absolutely. In my time of pastoring, I've encountered and counseled so many couples, and usually I would get a lot of couples where the husband or husband-to-be happens to be bisexual or has some kind of struggle with his sexuality, and it's always the question of, can I survive this marriage? Can I make it through this marriage? Or has this person truly changed? And I really believe that those are things that get defined by the couple themselves, the decisions that they choose to make with each other in terms of their faithfulness, etc. But outside of that, I really do believe that there's a conversation that needs to come in the religious community. There's an awakening or some kind of, that's no other word really. There's just an awakening that needs to happen within the church for people to realize these are not just taboo issues or the things that you sweep under the rug, but these are everyday things, and you're dealing with everyday people that have issues, that have things that need to be expressed, etc. So I feel like this evolution is creating a different type of awareness for people, bringing their attention to something that we want to keep at the back door.
Wow. Well, we have a question from our audience member.
Hi. Yes. I know you guys were saying basically there's nothing new under the sun, and how just now we're coming upon, you know, more people are just being open or feeling more like they'll be accepted for being open about what they are and what they like to do. But my question is, if there's nothing new under the sun, isn't this like something that's happened before? I mean, in general, in society, haven't people been really, really conservative and then been really, really open? So my question is, what is causing people, I guess, to open up now versus before now, and what made us close in the first place?
Great question. Thank you so much for your question. Who wants to take this? Dr. Becky, Sexy Kitty, Michael, come on, jump in.
Well, I guess we're probably going to say the same thing. Absolutely, it has happened multiple times. And I don't have a degree in history, I'll admit that. But we have seen this. There's an opening up, there's more it's accepted, and then there's a closing. And it is societal, which often can be linked to religion, but even religion itself is a cultural in a very serious way. So historically, a lot of the times it was because there was a king or an emperor who said, nope, that's not allowed. Can't do that. In fact, a lot of religions were adopted to keep people in line, to keep, going to burn in hell if you do that. Don't do that. But at the end of the day, it's society. Society saying we're willing to accept this, we're not willing to accept that. And why it opens, I don't have an answer for, so I don't know if anybody else does, but it just seems that people, I think as we get hit with things over and over again, you get used to it. You become less sensitized. The first time you ever see a man kissing a man, if you've never seen that in your whole life, it's, oh my God, what is happening?
Well, you're absolutely right. It is something that is shocking, especially if you experience it for the first time. And we're going to talk about something that's coming to our awareness now, and that's transgender, that is bisexual, that is a lot of these terms that we've discussed, because that is a new evolution of love, some even self-love. Oh, yeah. So when we return, we'll be back with more of Talking Out Loud with A.L. Cooper.